The hum of the office was the sound of my life for 3 years. I sat at my desk, my fingers flying across the keyboard, lost in the complex lines of code for Project Phoenix. I just solved a problem that had stalled the entire team for a week. When Mr. Benson walked past, I looked up, ready to share my breakthrough. "Sir, I think I've fixed the—" He didn't even slow down. He just patted my shoulder absently, his eyes glued to his phone. "Good, good, Raphael, keep at it." I watched him walk straight into Samuel's office, his booming laugh echoing out a moment later. I saw Samuel smile, accepting praise for work he hadn't done. I simply closed my eyes for a second, then went back to typing. What else was there to do? Later in the team meeting, Mr. Benson announced, "Team, great news. The core issues with Project Phoenix are resolved." Samuel sat up straighter, a proud smile on his face. Thanks to Samuel's quick thinking, we're back on track. I felt my face grow warm. Emily, who sat next to me, kicked my foot gently under the table. Her eyes pleaded, "Say something." But I just looked down at my notes. I was quiet, not weak. I still believed foolishly that my work would speak for itself. He talked about everyone giving their best, about this project being our future. All I could think about were my countless late nights, the documents I'd prepared. I stayed silent, hoping someone would notice. The promotion was supposed to be mine. I'd trained the previous senior analyst. I had more successful projects under my belt than anyone else. I applied, prepared my presentation, and waited. The email came on a Friday afternoon. "After careful consideration, the role has been offered to another candidate." I read it 5 times. Samuel walked out of Mr. Benson's office beaming. "Big shoes to fill, team, but I'm ready for the challenge," he said, slapping me on the back. "Don't worry, buddy, your time will come." That was the moment. A small, quiet click inside me, like a lock turning. Something had finally shifted. "You have to say something, Raph," Emily whispered in the break room. "He presented your entire workflow document as his own." I was there. I stirred my coffee, watching the dark liquid swirl. "What good would it do? Benson loves him." "It's not right," she insisted. "They're using you, they don't know your worth." I looked out the window at the city stretching beyond our walls. "Maybe it's time they found out." Emily looked confused. "What does that mean?" I just gave her a small, sad smile. I didn't know the details yet, but I knew the feeling of being invisible was becoming unbearable. The final humiliation happened on a Tuesday. A major client was visiting and Mr. Benson stopped at my desk. "And this is Raphael, one of our diligent workers," he said, as if pointing out a reliable printer. The client asked a technical question about security. Mr. Benson stumbled. Trying to help, I gently corrected him and provided the accurate, detailed explanation. His face turned red. He forced a laugh. "Raphael handles the small, tedious bits," he said to the client, his voice tight. "I handle the big picture strategy. Don't confuse the details with the vision." He steered the client away, leaving me feeling small and foolish in front of everyone. That night I didn't sleep. I stared at my ceiling, replaying the public dismissal over and over. It was the final straw. The years of stolen credit, the missed promotion, Samuel's smirk, it all crystallized into a single clear thought: I am done. This wasn't a hot, angry decision. It was cold and solid, like a stone settling at the bottom of a river. I wasn't going to yell. I was going to leave. And I was going to make sure that when I did, they would feel my absence like a missing limb. A plan began to form in my mind, quiet and precise. The next morning, I acted perfectly normal. I greeted everyone, worked on Project Phoenix, and attended Samuel's meeting. I was calm. I was professional. Inside, I was a ghost already fatting from the walls of Benson Global. I started quietly organizing my personal files. I didn't download or copy anything I wasn't supposed to. I was smarter than that. Instead, I made a mental list of every critical process only I knew, every password I alone managed, every client who specifically asked for me. I was counting the threads I held, knowing the entire tapestry would unravel without them. 2 weeks after the incident with the client, I walked into Mr. Benson's office. My resignation letter was in my hand. It was simple and direct. He read it and chuckled, leaning back in his expensive chair. Raphael, is this about the promotion? You have to be tougher. This business isn't for the sensitive. I said nothing. Well, if that's your decision, we'll manage. Everyone is replaceable, you know. Those words, replaceable, I just nodded. I understand, thank you, sir. I turned and walked out, closing the door softly behind me. My final 2 weeks were strange. I trained a new hire, showing him the basics but keeping the intricate secrets of the systems to myself. Why would I give away my leverage? Mr. Benson avoided me. Samuel was smug. Only Emily was sad. I'm going to miss you, she said on my last day. This place is going to fall apart without you. I hugged her. Keep in touch. And watch what happens, I whispered. I cleaned out my desk and walked out without looking back. The first Monday of my freedom felt surreal. I woke up without an alarm. The silence in my apartment was beautiful. I made a plan. I signed up for advanced courses. I reached out to old mentors. I spent my days reading, learning, and sharpening my skills. For the first time in years, I was investing in Raphael. The fear was there, but it was overshadowed by a thrilling sense of possibility. I was no longer the undervalued employee. I was becoming something more. I decided to become a consultant. I used my savings to create a professional website and started reaching out to my network. A former client who had always appreciated my work gave me my first small project. I delivered results that exceeded expectations. That client recommended me to another. The word began to spread. I was my own boss. I set my own hours. The respect was immediate and intoxicating. Meanwhile, I heard through Emily that trouble was brewing at Benson Global. A report I usually generated automatically had failed. No one knew how to fix it. Samuel tried and made it worse. A small client complained about a delayed update, a minor issue that took the team 3 days of panic to solve. The smooth machine was starting to grind. By the middle of the second week after I'd left, the real panic set in. The password for the main project server expired. I was the only one with the admin credentials to reset it. Samuel was locked out for an entire afternoon. Mr. Benson was furious. I can only imagine the scene Emily described. Samuel sweating, saying, Raphael never shared it. Bruce, a senior who'd always ignored me, finally muttering, he did a lot more than we realized, didn't he? Then Project Phoenix began to wobble. The client requested a modification, a task that would have taken me a few hours. The team struggled for days. The code became messy. Errors popped up. The client sent a sharply worded email. The pressure was now a physical thing. The department was a ship taking on water, and the only person who knew how to plug the holes was gone. The full-scale collapse came. The lead on the Project Phoenix client team wrote to Mr. Benson, copying the CEO, and activated the termination clause. This was the disaster that could sink the company. That was the moment the truth finally hit him. I wasn't just a worker. I was the backbone. Why didn't anyone tell me? He roared at the team. Emily later told me she was the one who spoke up, her voice clear and calm. We did, sir. You just never listened. Bruce backed her up. Raphael was running half this department on his own. Samuel took the credit, and you allowed it. He was finally stunned into silence by the evidence of his own failure. Desperation took over. My phone started ringing. Mr. Benson. It went to voicemail. He called again. He sent texts. Raphael, we need to talk. Urgent. He sent emails. Please call me. I didn't reply. The silence from my end was deafening. It was the same silence they had forced upon me for years. He was starting to understand what it felt like. I saw the missed calls and emails. I felt a surge of satisfaction, but I didn't smile. I was in a meeting with a new, prestigious client in my clean, modern co-working space. I was respected here. I was valued. I let him wait. I knew what this was about. This was the moment I had planned for, and I would not jump just because Benson snapped his fingers. After 3 days of radio silence, he became frantic. He drove to my old apartment. A stranger answered the door and told him I'd moved out a month ago. He had no idea where I lived or anything about my life. He had never bothered to ask. He had treated me like a tool, and now that tool was gone and his workshop was falling apart. Finally, after a week, I replied. A single line, I can meet you today at 4 p.m., the Coffee Bean on 5th. It wasn't a request, it was a statement. He immediately agreed. He arrived early, nervous. When I walked in, I saw the moment he barely recognized me. I stood taller. I wore a confidence he had never seen. This wasn't the timid employee he used to boss around. "Raphael, thank you for coming," he said, his voice shaky. I simply nodded and sat down. I didn't order anything. "Look, I made a mistake. A big one," he began, stumbling over his words. "The Project Phoenix contract is terminated. The department is a mess. We can't function without you." I listened, my face unreadable. "Please," he begged, his pride completely gone. "Please come back. Name your price. We need you." The boss was begging the employee he once called replaceable. I let the silence stretch, looking him directly in the eye. "I'm not coming back to work for you," I said, my voice even and firm. His face fell. But I continued, "I am willing to consult for you." I pulled a single sheet of paper from my bag. My consulting rate was 5 times my old salary. I demanded full control over the project and the team. Samuel was to be removed immediately. He looked at the terms. They were outrageous. They were also his only hope. With a trembling hand, he agreed to everything. The next Monday, I walked back into Benson Global. It felt different. I wasn't returning as a defeated employee. I was arriving as the solution. The team looked at me with a mixture of shame and awe. Emily smiled. Samuel was gone. Mr. Benson introduced me. "Raphael is here as a senior consultant. You will report directly to him." The power had completely shifted. I got to work. I didn't seek revenge through shouting or blame. I did it through absolute, quiet competence. I fixed the broken code in hours. I streamlined the processes. I contacted the Project Phoenix client directly and calmly laid out a recovery plan. I was so capable that the client agreed to pause the termination. I was doing in days what the entire team had failed to do in weeks. As I worked, I uncovered the full extent of Samuel's sabotage: documents where he'd taken credit for my work, emails where he'd given bad instructions to undermine me. I presented this evidence calmly to Mr. Benson and HR. With the company's survival on the line, they acted fast. Samuel was fired for gross misconduct. Justice, long delayed, was finally served. With Samuel gone and me in charge, the department's mood transformed. Chaos was replaced by order. Bruce and the others now looked at me with genuine respect. They followed my directions without question. They saw how brilliant I truly was. I was the leader they should have had all along. Within 2 weeks, Project Phoenix was not just saved, it was better than ever. I'd implemented improvements that made the system faster and more secure. The client was thrilled. They sent a glowing email to the CEO, specifically praising my extraordinary skill and professionalism. Mr. Benson's humiliation was complete, but so was his lesson. When my consulting contract ended, Mr. Benson asked to see me. "The job is still yours if you want it," he said, almost pleading. "The senior analyst role, a huge raise." I shook my head. "No, thank you. I have my own business to run." I had built something for myself, something that couldn't be taken away. I was free. On my final day, the team threw a genuine goodbye party for me. Bruce shook my hand firmly. "We were fools," he said. Others apologized for not speaking up sooner. Emily hugged me. "I'm so proud of you," she said. They thanked me for teaching them a lesson about respect. That evening, I sat in my new apartment, looking at the city lights. I thought about my journey, the pain of being undervalued, the quiet decision to leave. I had gotten the ultimate revenge, but it felt peaceful. I hadn't needed to scream. I simply had to walk away and become so successful that my absence became a louder statement than my presence ever was. I met Emily for lunch a few days later. She told me Mr. Benson was a changed man. He listened now. He was more humble. "You didn't just save the project, Raph," she said. "You changed the whole culture of that place." I smiled. That felt like a better legacy than any promotion. My consulting business continued to grow. The story of how I saved Benson Global spread, making me even more sought after. I was no longer just a skilled worker. I was the guy who had faced down a crisis and won. I was living the life I had always wanted, built on my own terms. One night I wrote in my journal. I reflected on the entire experience. I wrote, "They underestimated me because I was quiet. They thought my silence meant I was weak. They were wrong. My quietness was my strength. It allowed me to watch, to learn, and to plan. Walking away was the loudest statement I could have made, and my quiet success after, that was the sweetest revenge." Months passed. I was truly happy. The memory of Mr. Benson's begging face no longer gave me a thrill of revenge. Instead, it served as a reminder of how far I had come. I had transformed betrayal into resilience and undervaluation into unstoppable growth. I had rewritten my own value, and in doing so, I had found not just success, but myself. And that was a victory no one could ever take away from me.